Okay, so I had to make sure I was properly hydrated, I'll say, before I decided to sit here and talk to this audience in which I just really feel has lost connection with me, and I've also lost connection with as well. And this is more so my attempt to rekindle that connection because, I've had this channel for many years and it's taken different pathways, we'll say. We've been down fitness, we've been down faith, and of course, I want to keep the faith in, but I also want to share life experiences, share my perspectives, and the things in which, I go through in hopes that hearing it from my point of view will help somebody out there that's in need. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Derek, and I go by Brother D. I feel like that is definitely easier. I mean, Derek's not that hard either, but I feel like that's easier to remember because people have a tendency of forgetting your name. But maybe if the name was on the channel, people would remember it. But we're going to stick with Brother D for now. And I just want to thank everybody out there who's taking the time to watch this video, who's taking the time out of their day to listen to me speak and to give my point of view when it comes to being a father. So, before I get started, first of all, I want to just say to the parents out there, whether you are a single parent, in a relationship, whatever the case may be, my hat goes off to you because parenting is very difficult, very hard. Me and my wife, we have three children, ages 7, 8, and 15. Actually, the 15-year-old will be 16 in a couple of weeks. So if you want to round it off, just say 16 years old. He's growing up so quickly, and I'm finding out now that there are levels to parenthood, fatherhood, we'll say, motherhood too, I'm sure, that nobody really talks about, that my family never prepared me for. I'll just say, um, background story. I was raised by my great grandparents. My mother had me at the age of 15. She was too young to care for me. She was still in high school. Her parents, which are my grandparents, were very strict, and I'll just say they were very mean too. And they would not allow her to take care of me. So their solution was to send me to my great grandparents. My father was not in my life at all. Actually, I did not meet my biological father until I was the age of 27 years old, which was almost about 10 years ago. So, raised by old people, and when you stay with old people or your grandparents, they kind of let you have your way. They cut a lot of slack, and there really wasn't a lot of standards embedded in me. There wasn't a lot of discipline, even though they would get angry, and there really wasn't a lot of punishment. And as I here stand at 36 years old, I look back on my childhood, I look back on my teenage years. It boggles my mind how they allowed me to do the things that I did and with no consequences whatsoever. And because of some of those choices that I've made, it actually ended up spilling over into adulthood and caused me to make even more mistakes and caused me to actually have a deficit in certain things. My family never taught me any of the important things in life. Nothing. And by my father not being in my life, I never really got that male, that intimate male relationship, that male bonding, despite having a stepdad and a grandfather and a great grandfather. These three individuals never really took the time to actually pour into me and to mold me into becoming what by definition is a man. learning about responsibility, learning about the things in which you have to do to take the initiative, leadership. None of these things were installed in me from nor my stepfather, grandfather, great grandfather. Remember, biological father was nowhere in the picture. So a lot of the things in which I learned from the streets. I learned from other influences, outside influences, which 9 times out of 10 were not positive. I never learned that there are individuals who do not have my best interests. I never learned that there are people out here who actually want to see my downfall. So they will lie to me and try to pull me into different crowds to make sure that I never excel in life. Nobody ever taught me these things. And here I stand creating a child at the age of 19. I recall my mom telling me, because I remember calling her on the phone and saying, Mom, you're going to be a grandmother. And she sighed for a second. She said, okay, just understand that it's no longer about you, son. It's about that child. And at the time, I didn't understand what that meant, but I always remembered it and kept it in the back of my head like, it's not about you anymore. It's about the child. It's not about you anymore. It's about this baby, a boy or a girl, which I have no idea what the heck it was going to be until we learned, I don't know, sometime later that it's a boy. Bam. And to say the least, became parents at the age of 19 and 20, which is young. And I often talk to my wife about this. Like, I wish that we had waited a little bit later, at least maybe until our late 20s to decide having kids, because when you have kids and you want to be a responsible parent and you want to do the things in which you are supposed to do as a parent, raise your children, you are very limited when it comes to the things in which you're able to do. You can't move the way you want to move. You can't really travel. You have to be home at certain times if you are going to consider yourself to be a good parent. So there is a sacrifice in which takes place when you become a parent. Okay. So flash forward, we have 2 other children, which makes a total of 3. Mind you, I do have 2 other additional kids. One of them passed away at birth, and my wife had a miscarriage at about 7 or 8 weeks into her pregnancy back in 2011. So we have a total of 5 kids, but we have 3 that are living with us, of course. So I'm here to just talk to people, especially the guys. I don't have any girls. I just have boys, so I can't speak from a perspective of raising girls. But trust me when I say I do believe that young ladies absolutely need their fathers in their life. They really do. And I understand why, because to a girl, a young lady, her father is the standard of what a man should be, how a man should treat her. That is what a father should be to his daughter, so that she doesn't get game ran on her, so that she doesn't fall for a narcissistic individual, so she doesn't fall for an individual that's a manipulator, because there are some young ladies out here that are hurting badly because they are being manipulated by these men who are telling them things in which they want to hear, causing them to do things they truly don't want to do, but they want to be loved. That can just go so far, and maybe I'll talk about that in a later video. But I want to talk about raising boys right quick. So society wants, first of all, there's already a war on men. Whether you want to believe that or not, there's a war on men, there's a war on masculinity, there's just a war on males altogether. It's not okay nowadays to be an alpha male. It's not okay nowadays to be an aggressive male. Those things are looked at as toxic. This whole toxic masculinity thing that came about within this last decade, which I can't stand, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being an aggressive individual as long as you are respectful, as long as you are taking responsibility. I feel that aggressiveness responsibly shows great leadership tendencies, and that you won't shy away from the opinions of others. You won't shy away just because people may not see things the way that you do, because you should be able to stand your ground, keep it moving with your head up high, and not let anybody tear you down just because you're aggressive. We ain't about to be soft in this society, and I'm not raising those soft boys. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there like that. So, my kids all have three different personalities. I'll start with my oldest. My oldest is pretty introverted, takes after his mother a lot. He is very much into art. He already knows what he wants to go to college for, and he's very talented. He is a graphic designer who specializes in creating cartoons from the 1930s era. Like what is it? The Felix the Cat, stuff like that from way, way back in the day, the old Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse stuff. That's what he's into, that type of art field, we'll say. He stays to himself a lot. He does. My middle son he has very high leadership characteristics, we'll say. He always wants to see people happy. He wants to see people doing their best, including his oldest brother. He really takes the initiative. He's going to be a phenomenal leader. He's very considerate, caring. That's my baby right there. I love him so much. I love all my kids, but you're always going to have that one kid that stands out, and that's him. And my youngest child he's very wild. Very loving, though. Very loving, very emotional. He shares his feelings. He's touchy-feely, much like myself. My middle son is not touchy-feely. My oldest son is not touchy-feely. So all of my kids have tendencies from both me and my wife, okay? So I have to love on them differently. I can't love them the same. I can love them equally, but I have to love them all in their way. Because if I love them all the same, then they're not going to be able to receive me the way that they need to receive me. And I'm not going to be able to receive them the way that I should receive them, because they're different. You should not treat all of your kids the same by personality traits. You should treat them all the same by loving them equally. We'll say that much. So being a dad who works full time, I get up in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock most days, and some days I don't finish with my day until 7, almost 8 p.m. So it's really difficult for me to get quality time in with my kids, and I absolutely hate it. I'm just praying that God just opens up a door or gives me an opportunity that does not take up so much of my time, so that I can spend ample time with my kids, because I love my kids and I want to be around them so much. I actually feel guilty when I'm not around them, and I absolutely hate that. We're at this point right now where we're trying to do the best that we can for our kids to excel academically. One mistake that I made last year was working so much and leaving that responsibility in the hands of my wife when she's only one person. My wife at one point was working a whole lot. She quit her job because it was taking up too much of her time. It was not allowing her to be able to go to church on Sundays, and that's a no-no right there. If your job's not allowing you to go to church, you need to get another job. Pray that God provides, because he always does. So she quit her job. She stayed home for about 5 months just so that she can give extra attention to the kids and their academics. But as a dad, I felt like, you know what? I want to be involved with that too. I can't just put all the pressure on her. And even though I work a lot, I'm just praying that God, like I said, gives me the opportunity to be able to step in and to help my kids with mathematics, help them with reading and etc., literature, all that good stuff. So it's not easy. It's very, very hard, and it's stressful too. But I would not trade it for the world. Being a father definitely has changed me, and it has allowed me to see life from a different perspective, and it has opened up a gateway of responsibility in which I didn't have in my teenage years, and I didn't have in my 20s. I'm in my going into my late 30s right now. And I feel that every single day I'm learning something new. Every single day, I'm learning something that I didn't know the previous day when it comes to being a parent. It's a learning process, especially with my oldest son, which I want to spend the majority of my time talking about right now. He's 15 years old. You know what? Hold on. Let me have a swig of water before I do this. He's 15 years old. He'll be 16 in a couple of weeks. I remember being his age. I remember the things in which I did. I remember the things that I talked about. I remember the things that I thought about. And when I talk to him and I ask him, hey, is there anything on your mind? Is there something you want to talk to me about? He's like, no, no, everything's fine. I'm like, you got hair under your arms. You are starting to get chest hair, stomach hair. Hormones are definitely kicking in, son. There's no need for you to be bashful. It's all good. Now, I know that some kids don't like talking to their parents, because it's awkward. I didn't really like doing that. And the majority of the reason I didn't like talking to my grandparents or my mom, whenever that opportunity presented itself in which to talk, they never really made it they never really extended that olive branch. They never made it comfortable. They never really provided an environment in which I could talk to them about things openly. So I kept a lot of stuff to myself, or I asked other people who were not in the household, okay? But I'm working on trying to give my son the confidence in which I want him to have to be able to talk to me, because I love him and I don't want him to make mistakes, even though he's going to make mistakes. Recently, I went through his phone and I found some inappropriate images of women. So there were mixed reactions with that right there. So, of course, the man in me was like, hey, okay. But then the dad in me was like, son, how can you explain this? And then he came up with the weirdest excuse. Remember, I said he's a graphic design artist and that he loves to draw. He loves to do these things all the time. And he told me, Dad, I'm only utilizing this for the anatomy of the female body. And I'm like, hold on. You mean to tell me you need to look at these images for cartoon purposes? Yeah. So I'm like, well, even if that was the case, do you really think this is appropriate? Couldn't say anything. So, of course, I showed his mom. She looked at the picture, then she looked away, and then she's like, you gotta talk to him. So, of course, I talked to him in depth and just broke it down to him, basically the things in which was never told to me. And I think that if more fathers or mothers, I'll say, if you're raising a boy, that you should definitely talk to your kids about sex, because one, they're going to learn it with or without your input. And you don't want them to learn it from the streets. You don't want them to learn it from friends. You don't want them to learn it from anybody but you. Do I want my kids having sex? Absolutely not. Did I have sex as a teenager? Yes, I did. But again, I want to be able to give my kids the opportunities in which I didn't get. I don't want them to make the mistakes that I made. So I have to be open with them about these things and tell them the consequences of the actions in which happen and when you do these things. And of course, we are a Christian family and we keep God in everything that we do. And it definitely is a priority to make sure that the kids know that sex is for marriage and it is intended between a husband and his wife. So, having these talks, is it awkward? Yeah, but at the same time, it definitely is needed. But it's showing me that there are other things in which are important when it comes to fatherhood versus just working. My mom told me something else that I never forgot. She says, don't be the man that's just making the money and paying the bills. Be the father, be the dad. My mom is over 50. She's like 52 years old right now. Remember, she had me at 15. And she still looks back on her teenage years. She was like, my parents did not install in me the things in which I needed. They were never there. They worked all the time and I was unsupervised and I ended up making mistakes. Here she stands at 50 plus years old looking back at her childhood and trying to, not let her kids make the same mistake. Now, we all were all in school when we had kids. All of us never had kids while we were in school like she did. So she feels like she broke a curse. And I don't want my kids to have to experience that too. So I just wanted to sit here and just let you dads out there know, moms too, that communication with your kids, regardless of how awkward you may think it is or how much you may think they're not listening, is extremely vital. Kids are smart and they listen. Do not be quiet and keep things to yourself. Talk to your children because what you don't teach them, they're going to learn one way or another. And you would much rather them learn from you than somebody else because streets, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever the case may be, they don't always have the best interests. They're immature. They're not there yet, but you are. And I know some of you out there have made mistakes in which you don't want your kids to go through. So take the time out to talk to your kids. Communication. I'm not saying you got to be friends, but talk to your kids. It's so important. We should want our kids to be better than us. We should want them to prosper. We should want them to be the version of us 2.0. That's at least what I want for my kids. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate each and every one of you out there. I didn't want to make this video too long because I can sit here and talk for hours, but comment down below, please. If you are a parent raising kids, I want to know your experience. What are you going through right now and how are you handling it? If you're new, please consider subscribing to this channel. Give this video a like and we'll keep this content flowing. I love each and every one of you. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. God bless you all. Peace.